We know who we are now, but we don't know who we'll be in the future.
I like that.
So I'm going to believe that I'm going to be somebody one day or I'm insane. But those are the only two options for me.
But that's the mentality you have to have, though, to succeed.
Nice. I sold like 6,000 worth of cards when I was like 13. It was like, I think
that's a lot of
like,
money for a 13-year-old.
I might.
It's a brutal industry
that's
too.
The first
if you don't bring that value.
It's a brutal industry.
So it's just happened by accident.
Yeah.
It's like everything else in life. Because I have my own business now. And it's bringing like 25 to 50K per month right now. And
wow.
I am going crazy. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Chris Sean Talks. On this episode we have right now is Yihua, who is a lead software engineer at Bonsai, and you're also an instructor for Zero to Mastery, right?
Yep.
Nice. Well, Yehua, I really appreciate you being on here, dude. I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here, especially to talk a little bit about how you went on your journey too. I'm kind of going through like a similar kind of transition myself. Definitely interested in more and more this, I guess, like conversational aspect that you've managed to do for yourself in your career. So I know it's meant to be, I guess, I don't know if it's an interview for me, but like I'd love to just
it's a conversation. It's a conversation. I mean, yeah, if you want to interview me, it's cool, but it's a conversation, right? I talk about anything and everything. Well, first of all, I mean, people are here because they also want to hear about you as well, right? So right now, you're an engineer for 5 years, right? You decided to become an instructor for ZTM, and ZTM's only been around for like what, 4 years, 5 years? Hasn't been
maybe
around.
Maybe less.
So were you the second instructor?
Yeah, I was after Andre.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're an engineer for X amount of years. Why did you decide to do this? Is it because you just knew Andre, right? The Andre that never shows his face anywhere on the internet. You just happened to know him.
So it's kind of interesting because me and Andre had worked together actually at this great Toronto startup. Not even a startup, sorry. A great Toronto developer shop.
Yeah.
Called Wrangle. We're consultancy. Actually, that's what we were. And at the time, I was consulting for a client that was based out of Spain, but I was living in Amsterdam. So for Wrangle. At the time, I had some visa issues that were not really resolved. It was like a complicated kind of situation. So I was actually out there and I had to quit my job at Wrangle due to my visa issues. And I had 6 months on my hands before me and my partner at the time, we were going to move to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And the time I was like, well, you know, actually, before I became even a software engineer, I was a instructor for like athletes. I was teaching them how to do like Olympic lifting, strength and conditioning training.
Oh, so do you body lift and et cetera now?
Yeah, I still do.
Nice.
I do it, but at a much less degree, of course.
Do you have a home gym or do you prefer to work out at a gym?
I do a mix. I have a couple of friends who I have a lot of workout equipment with that we work out there, but then I'll go to a gym as well. It just really depends on the mood of it. But at the time I was thinking actually about doing like something in the fitness space, but in terms of video content, because I knew that at the time the course e-learning thing was starting to really bubble. But then luckily for me, actually one of my other colleagues who was actually my lead on multiple projects that we had done at Wrangle, he got reached out to by Andre. And then Andre passed on that opportunity to me through his referral. This lead engineer, Abdullah. So it was like very serendipitous because I thought about doing video content stuff. Andre was looking for an instructor and then just happened through our connections.
Wow.
That's how I got.
So it just happened by accident.
Yeah.
It's like everything else in life. Everything else in life, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, the opportunity came, but you were ready for the opportunity though, right? Like it's not like the opportunity was there. You had no experience in engineering whatsoever. You had the experience and et cetera, and boom, he took a chance on you. So hold on, why did he choose to work with you?
Andre?
What was it? Yeah, what was it? Because I saw you do some stuff in Udemy. Maybe that was with Andre. I don't know.
That was with Andre. So we did Udemy, and then Andre started Zero to Mastery. I think one big reason is because Andre and I always had good conversations with each other, even though they were kind of brief. That helped. But secondly, and this is all props to Andre, he himself was willing to take a chance. Like he knew what he was looking for to some degree. And I think just based off our connection to some degree, he was like, okay, let me try it out. Let me see how it works. Because I was the first instructor other than him that he took a risk on, right?
The thing is though, like that risk that he took on you, you know, that could either cause the company to fail or et cetera, succeed. But then again, that depends on your commitment. Like you don't know how well this can go. You don't know where ZTM's going at the time. You're the second instructor. I'm not sure if Mackenzie was around yet as a COO at the time. No, not yet, right? So a CEO is important though, because I have my own business now, and it's bringing like 25 to 50K per month right now. And
wow,
I am going crazy. Like, because I work 20 hours. It feels like 20 hours a day. Maybe like 18 hours a day, right? So 100 hours a week minimum. And so running a business, focusing on the money aspect, the sponsorships, the marketing, I'd rather just focus. This is my YouTube channel with sponsorships and stuff. And like, so I had to hire someone who's like a CEO, who's not, but he actually gets a percentage of whatever I make, not just a salary. And I could see why it's so important. And hiring people who can help me make content, like he hired you to help, create content, because doing all this stuff is so difficult. And so I see the importance of the first people you hire are extremely important. I fired 2 people already because if they're not going to help right away, like what I learned from Gary Vee, who is the reason I did YouTube, you hire fast and you fire fast. If you don't see them helping right away, you have to let them go, and that's it's going to affect my pockets in the future too. So so what I'm trying to bring up is the fact that he chose to hire you shows a lot of trust, right? That's a big deal. Seeing where ZTM is now with how many employees? 14 employees right now.
Yeah, and then probably even more instructors. I think the instructor count is really high. I haven't gotten the new number, but it's either 20 or more or close to it. It's somewhere lingering there. It's crazy. I mean, it's a rocket ship, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing that helped was that Andre and I, before we both became software engineers, we were actually both entrepreneurs ourselves. So I totally relate to you on that part about hiring fast and firing fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my own gym. I mean, that's why I totally understand. Yeah,
that's actually one of my dreams. So I want to create a boot camp that teaches people for free, where people can go like legit boot camp. If I produce that enough money, right? Or get if my channel does well, get company to sponsor that so I can pay instructors. Then have my own gym. It literally is just
like a coding boot camp.
Yeah, legit coding boot camp.
I was a part of actually a big one that was free.
Really?
In Toronto. Yeah, it was called Bridge. It's not around anymore, but at the time.
Well, if it was free, it makes sense.
But it wasn't actually the money that was the problem. There was like some other like political issues that came up, but it was very, very successful because it primarily helped women and people of color find a foothold into the industry. And its model was very interesting, and it worked. It was actually very successful.
That's definitely the goal, and I think that's what I'm really passionate about, because it took me a long time to reach a 6-figure salary because there was no one to guide me. It took me a long time to find a decent job or negotiate because there's no one to guide me. And so that's my goal, to be able to help people, right? If not, maybe just offer a lot of scholarships and for people who can afford it, can pay, and et cetera, right? So I don't know how that works, but that's my end goal because I just love helping people in general. But that's awesome though. So you know what it takes to work, the kind of work it takes to make something succeed. And the way I see things, and this is what when I spoke with Andre, because I had a meeting with him, we were talking about maybe I can help with the YouTube channel, about YouTube and business. He's super passionate about it. And I could see, I mean, if you were, that had that entrepreneurial mindset, I could see why he hired you too. So before we continue on talking about all the things that you're doing, even I want to talk about like what you plan on doing for the next month or so. The fact that we had to do an interview so soon is pretty funny. But what were you doing before tech, right? Like you were a software engineer. Did you do the normal route where you went to college, got your 4-year degree, became a software engineer, self-taught, boot camp?
Yeah, so before I became an engineer, I was actually as I mentioned, I was an Olympic lifting instructor. I had a gym. I had a partner that I was working with, and we were primarily training hockey players. And I just happened to meet at my ex-girlfriend's party, the CEO of BitMaker, which was a Toronto-based boot camp. He told me, he's like, hey, you do our boot camp, and in 3 years, you could be making like a 6-figure salary. You don't need a prior background.
So he was being realistic. He said 3 years, you make 6 figures.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow,
he was being very realistic about it.
Yeah. Nice.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good. So I started the boot camp, and then that's how it all started, right?
Nice.
There were other draws, of course. I think like the idea of remote living seemed really appealing. And other than that as well, I think it was just, my degree is not in software engineering or engineering. My degree is in philosophy and political science. But my philosophy specialization was in logic and rational thinking,
which is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in terms of that, I saw a lot of overlap in the way that programming and then these kind of like logical axiom calculations were. In fact, they're almost used exclusively as a baseline for a lot of computer engineering, at least at the very base level.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, okay, I think I can do this. And then from there, that's kind of how I started.
Compared to what you thought your life in tech would be compared to now. Like, for example, I was living in my car 6 years ago.
Wow.
Now, like money's not a problem. But the thing is, I never thought I would ever have as much money. You know what I mean? I never thought I'd be able to earn what I earn now. And just the lifestyle of freedom. And if I'm not happy, find a new job. Well, maybe not in a recession, but after after the recession, find a job like that, right? A lot of people who are watching this channel are people who are aspiring engineers, people who work in tech are still early in the career, because I don't teach anything technical like everyone else does that. I let them do that. How is your life now compared to before? Did you expect to be where you are today?
I think so. I'm not gonna lie, in the sense that like I
Wow,
think my
confident.
yeah, I think a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit always drove in my head that it was either I was gonna make it or I was gonna break it, right?
Yeah.
Like it was one way or the other. I mean, since I was like 13, I think I tried to be an entrepreneur. I was like selling magic cards when I was 13 online.
Dang.
I just always expected. I don't want to say expect, but I think I just always anticipated that like I had to succeed no matter what. And software engineering was just one way for me to do it. That was even why I jumped at the opportunity too, because I was like, hey, I mean, I'm used to taking risks. Like, let me try it.
Yeah.
Worst case, I've learned something that I don't want to do, or I found something that maybe I'm not good at, and then I'll continue to figure out what I'm good at, right? Like, I think so much of it is just trying to figure it out, and I guess it's kind of like that hustler's mentality. I mean, you must have it too in order for you to even get here from your car, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
not
I
like an
didn't-
easy way to climb out of.
I mean, I grew up rich, right? My parents were rich, not anymore. They were, and they just didn't know how to handle money, which I'm learning from their mistake, right? So now they're not. I support them now, but I grew up having everything, and so I was spoiled as hell, like to the point where we would have the most expensive cars, and I would think I was better than everyone because that's how my parents were thinking. That's how they thought. Oh, they got the cheap version, the poor version of a Porsche. You know, you're like, what's the poor version of a Porsche? That okay, right? But then we lost everything. You know, I became homeless. It became humble as hell. I never had that until I was living in my car, and until I had to ask my mom, who also barely had enough money to eat, for money so I can eat, right? And so like that's when my mindset completely changed. So I wasn't always like that until I lost everything, which I'm so thankful for, because I feel like my family would be taken care of forever. My family's, you know, my kids and kids. That's the goal at least. So yeah, I didn't have that, but now I have that, which I think not a lot of people have until you really understand how it feels like to have nothing. If my parents never lost a business that was making so much money, dude, like I have no idea where I'd be right now. Like I'd just be playing games. I mean, it's not bad playing games all day, but I didn't have a chance to grow up the way I had to, right? No, that's amazing though.
I had a kind of similar experience. I think my dad lost the first company that he had when I was around 13, which is probably why I started to try and like find a way to make more money to try and, I mean, I was 13. I was just like, is there a way for me to support the family? I mean, I'm really good at Magic the Gathering. Maybe I can try and sell some cards. And I actually ended up working pretty well.
Nice.
I sold like 6,000 worth of cards when I was like 13. It was like, I think
That's
that's
a lot of money for a
I
13-year-old.
might.
That's a lot of money right now.
Yeah. And I gave almost all of it to my mom. Yeah,
that's so nice.
I gave almost all of it to my mom, and I was like, maybe I could do something. So I guess like circling back to your question, right?
Wow.
I think that's part of it. I think also like I grew up like, so I'm a first generation immigrant here, and I kind of learned English like watching TV and like listening to rap music, and I like really got into Jay-Z, like really got.
Did you
into
try
Jay-Z,
to write your own lyrics
especially
too?
his first album? No, I always knew that rap was not for me. I'm very happy being a consumer, you know. But it's very inspirational. A lot of that hustle mentality, right? That idea that you come from nothing, which I didn't. I'm not going to ever say that I came from nothing. My parents are also very successful in their own right, and they gave me a lot of opportunity moving me here and everything. But I mean, like there's a very distinct line I remember that I always resonated with about Jay. Actually, it's from a recent album. I have it tattooed, but I had a similar thought about his music back then, but I have a lyric of his tattooed from his latest album, which is 444, and it's Lord, we know who we are, yet we know not what we may be, so maybe I'm the one, or maybe I'm crazy. And it's just like I've always loved that mentality, right? We know who we are now, but we don't know who we'll be in the future.
I like that.
So I'm gonna believe that I'm gonna be somebody one day, or I'm insane, but those are the only two options for me. So it's like, you know,
But that's the mentality you have to have though to succeed. Like without that mentality, unless
100%,
you force yourself to believe that, even though you do whatever it takes, even trick yourself to believe that. That is a mindset you need though, because it's normal to live paycheck to paycheck in America. It's normal to have to not be able to afford to fix your flat tire, oil change. Like the thing is, unless you have that mindset, unfortunately you might stay there unless you do something about it, right? You know what's really interesting you say that though, because when we lost everything, I got so used to just living paycheck to paycheck for like what, 7 years, 8 years. That's all I knew, and I thought that would be me for the rest of my life.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I never had the mindset that like I would ever make good money. I had the mindset, all right, I only could apply to customer service jobs, nothing specialized, living, making $18 an hour for the rest of my life, which is not a lot in California, not even close. I would never be able to afford a family. I need to marry maybe some girl who makes good money, a pharmacist, whatever, to live that nice life, right? I never thought that I would make it to where I am today, and especially as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm a late bloomer when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because I thought I wasn't one, and it's because I have anxiety. And so because of that anxiety, I was always worried of, all right, depending on, I'd rather have someone just give me the money, know it's coming in, knowing it's coming in. But I didn't realize that work ethic, the skill, the determination to push through when, like, even when everyone doubts you, I had all of that. And so now realizing the potential, even like, for example, my YouTube channel, I received a job offer from Brex and Coinbase for $400,000 a year. And I said no to it. I said no because I love my job. I even told my manager, Endeavor, at my current job, and I rejected it. He's like, why? All right. First of all, I don't ever do things just for the money. I do things because I love it. Now, YouTube is making me more money than I do in tech, right? Like just in sponsorships that I've signed this month, it's $25,000 in sponsorships alone, not including the affiliates to ZTM, by the way, not including AdSense, not including my clothing line, etc. And like, it is scary to know that I'm about to make even more than double what I make in tech in 1 month. Why should I keep doing my full-time job? And I'm so scared about that. But if this continues for the next 2 to 3 months, I'm willing to leave my $250,000 job to do YouTube full-time. Number one, they'll pay a lot more, but it's also a higher risk because I could be making $500,000 a year by next year if I wanted, right, in tech.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's scary, but the opportunity, like, you don't get these opportunities every day.
Yeah, and I think also the tech jobs are always waiting for you. You know what I mean? Like, if you've gotten the offer once, you'll get the offer again, unless like this recession wipes out the entire industry somehow in some way that we can't even see.
I don't think this will
point.
affect content creators though. Because businesses need content creators to get their stuff out there.
Yeah, but like let's say right, unless some apocalyptic event happens in tech, like it's always waiting for you. You can always come back to this, right?
Yes, and I might get paid a little bit lower when I come back, but I'll just grow my income again, and I could always come back.
Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
True.
I think it's exactly as you were saying about it.
Yeah, I think for me it's because number one, I support my parents. Right, I help with their rent, whatever bills they need. My fiance, I help support her now. I got 2 dogs, and then now I have how many employees? 3 employees, not employees, they're contractors, but 3 people who work under me, who depend on me to put food on the table now. So all these different responsibilities, having that extra, like, X amount of dollars from my job to come in every month that's consistent helps, and then trying to build this business. But I feel like it comes to a point for me personally where if I keep working full time, I'm making this much money. My current job will only limit me from succeeding that. It's a risk, but I'm willing to take that risk. I am. So we'll see. But I mean, so that's what I'm trying to say is I never thought I had that entrepreneurial mindset or courage that I think you need and determination to do it. And it's crazy to see that I do have that. And one thing I noticed about me is like risks don't really affect me. Like quitting a job with no job waiting for me, I don't care. I'll figure it out. Like it doesn't really affect me in the way I guess it does other people now. But yeah, so that's cool to just trying to show that I kind of do relate to that in a way where, you just figure out a way to make it work, and that's something I love doing. I'm addicted to it now.
Well, I think a lot of it too is that like it's timing too, right? Like a lot of I think there's a lot of this weird like hashtag entrepreneur culture that is very like toxic to people who think about being entrepreneurs, because you think that you always have to be a hustler, you always have to have the mentality. And I'm ironically saying this as somebody who like was telling you that when I was 13, I was like, oh, I gotta be a hustler. But like you go through waves, right? Like I have way more failures trying to be an entrepreneur than not. I've made like whiskey. I've tried to open a gym.
Shoot.
Yeah, I've done like so many weird different things, right? Because of this idea that like, I'm like, oh, I always got to be moving. But sometimes the opportunity is not right, and you can force it or you can't, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think you're also constantly growing as a person. You're always evolving from your experiences. And sometimes like in Chinese culture, we have a saying where it's like, you need it's got to be the right people. You have to be in the right place. And even when you have that, if it's not the right time, the timing of the heavens is not right, it's also not the right time for you, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the thing. So it's not to say that you were never, you think you were an entrepreneur or you had the entrepreneur ability at the time. It's just that maybe the timing wasn't right for you. The opportunity didn't come in a way that like inspired you to take this shot and take this risk, right? And maybe if you tried back then, maybe that thing wouldn't have worked. But now it's crushing it, right?
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, my question for you, actually, so you work a full-time job. This is with Airbyte, right?
Yeah. As a developer advocate.
This is as dev,
right?
So what you have your main YouTube channel.
Yep. And a
Which
second
is-
YouTube channel.
What's your main?
Chris Sean.
And a second YouTube channel.
Yeah.
What's
So Chris Sean
Sean,
is my main
gotcha.
YouTube channel. I just so that channel's at 116K subs. And interesting thing about my YouTube channel, I've been doing YouTube since I've been documenting my journey from living in my car to where I am today on YouTube. So from when I got my first job to getting laid off, to getting a new job, to get to being from quitting a job on the spot twice, right? Shared everything. And so been doing YouTube for 5 to 6 years. YouTube never really paid well. Sponsors never really reached out. And I thought my channel was dead a year ago. And so I figured, you know what? I'm just going to try to upload content 5 times this month. Let's just see what happens. Boom. Channel starts growing again. Getting more views than channels that have 500K subs. Hopefully it stays that way. And so when I saw how successful it was being, after uploading consistently again, now 3 to 4 to 5 sponsors were reaching out every single week. Hey, Chris, we'll pay you $2,000. What? $2,000 for a 60-second mention? I used to only charge $300 for this. What's going on?
Yeah.
Right. Because I have the check mark now. And 100K plus subs. And then now, it went from making only 3 to 4K a month from YouTube AdSense sponsors to then 10, and then now it's at 25 right now, and then next month going up and up and up. And so, and the reason this is happening now, though, not just because I'm uploading consistently, I'm putting effort to actually make good content. My cinematic quality of my videos, I'm changing. Hiring a video editor, helping the editor improve, hiring a channel manager, hiring an assistant to respond to sponsorships because I can't respond to all, so. And then now, I invested in $5,000 more of a camera equipment, right? So really trying to elevate that level. And so, so that's how the opportunity presents to myself. And the thing is, like you said, you can try so many things for years and it fails. I have friends who blew up on YouTube right after me. I have friends who are making more money on YouTube than me. Now I'm like, dude, I started YouTube before them. I share everything to my breakups. What's going on? This is not fair. And out of nowhere, I make more money on YouTube than tech. Out of nowhere, just like that. Right.
Yeah.
So you never know. But the thing is to be ready for those opportunities to come.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing too, right? That's life too. It's it often comes to you when you least expect it. It's kind of actually in a weird way been the weird lesson that I've been learning in my life, especially as of late. And I think a lot of that, it's opportunity in anything. I don't even think it's just tech.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it's just business. I think just in your regular life, sometimes when you're trying to force it, it doesn't come to you. And then when you kind of let go a little, then it suddenly comes to you. Right. And it's the weird irony of life. I think there's actually I don't want to say, I read about this recently, and I think it's a theory that the less you look for something, the more you find it. I think it's a topic of love. It's when you're really trying to find your life partner, they don't come to you. The moment you stop looking, suddenly they appear.
Yeah. I mean, that happened to me too in my relationship. No, I agree. And I think, when you try I don't know, it feels like when you try too hard, you make mistakes, I feel like if you just really let it come and you focus on just yourself, and that everything else naturally comes. Even when it comes to YouTube, no one can say I got lucky on YouTube because I never had a viral video. I had videos that reached 700K views over 3 years. That's not viral, right? That's it. I never had a viral video. I had to do YouTube the long way. Which I'm thankful for because people don't see, hey, this person has 1 million subscribers. He only gets 20 maybe. So right now I'm averaging 30K views per video. But he only gets 30K views per video for someone with 1 million subs. That's not good. Sponsors would pay even less, right? So now that I'm averaging 30K plus per video, hopefully it goes up. When you average out, then sponsors pay more. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity, But yeah, so you asked, so I do two YouTube channels, and I also manage Airbyte's YouTube channel. Why'd you ask that? Was there another question you had?
No, I'm just curious about the kind of businesses that you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
so that's it. If you want, sorry, I interrupted you. I get so excited talking about YouTube. I love YouTube. Wait, is there something else you were saying?
No, I was just curious.
Oh.
I just wanted to hear it because I had read about yourself when I got presented this podcast opportunity. Except I just didn't see your main channel, Chris Sean, because I think you linked me your Spotify and
just Spotify.
the podcast that we're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
And then I saw your Airbite. I just read what was in the email. Like I watched that stuff. So I mean, it's awesome to hear that you've got all. I didn't even know you had like this over 100,000 subscriber channel.
And you decided to be on a
awesome.
podcast.
That's really
Thank
cool.
you. I had a hiring manager recently who reached out to me. I've been looking for one. The thing is, it's hard to find someone who's good. So this person reached out to me. I wasn't sure they were good, and they're really good. And he presented all these business ideas and how we can, generate more income and not selling out to the audience. So, and the fact that this person would, so I feel like when someone else negotiates for me, and when I see more people to sponsors in the email, it just shows that you have kind of more power. You have more leverage because you have a team behind you. It's not just one small creator; it's actual team. So I hired him to do that. And some business aspects that we're thinking of is creating more content. And now these podcasts, and which I generally believe will do better in my main channel, hopefully down the road. More sponsors, right? So if I'm already doing 25, 30K per month on sponsorships with the podcast, not even including that, how much more would that go up? And the great thing about this is the fact that I get to make a living helping people, which is insane.
Yeah.
Right? Which is mind-boggling because like I was a kid, I have dyslexia. I grew up with a speech impediment. I couldn't even talk well. And now my job is to talk for a living, even for my full-time job, right? So yeah, I do have a clothing line called Developer Branded, which I don't promote anymore. I should promote it. I'm going to work with a designer to create new designs, make it more legit, and then start paying like legit YouTubers a salary every month to just wear my clothes on the channel all the time on Instagram posts.
Yeah.
So that's another goal. Test it out with some legit Instagram people, YouTube, TikTokers. And that's why I want to work full-time as long as possible while I grow my business, so that every dollar that comes into the business literally goes straight back into it, right? So if I just live off that, then have more savings, the least money I take out of the business, the more I can use to grow and generate more income. So that's my goal. And I live in a really small house. I sold my Porsche for a Honda CR-V because I'm like, nope, I just want to spend as little money as possible, and then later, when I'm 40, which is only 5 years from now, live a really nice life.
Oh damn, you look young, bro.
Really? How old do I look?
You look mad young. Yeah. I thought you were like 20. I thought you were like 25, 20.
Oh, dude, that's why I have an ultra wide lens. It doesn't show my pores. Yeah, I still have hair though. So that's kind of crazy. No, appreciate that though. But yeah, so that's my goal, man. So enough about me though. Everyone knows about me on my channel. So okay, full-time engineer and instructor. How the hell do you manage that? Because I'm managing 3 YouTube channels. And I might hopefully can help with ZTM if they decide to go with me, which is a lot of work, but I love it. That's why it's fun and easy for me. But how do you do that, dude? Like full-time engineer and instructor, I hate doing tutorials. Like, how do you manage all this?
I think for me, a lot of it, so it's 2 things, right? The first is that I think life comes in cycles. And especially as an instructor, I think it's super critical for me, especially as an instructor. I primarily teach around the industry. Like I teach React and I teach cracking the FANG interview. Those are my 2 main courses. And the next course I'm going to do is system design. And then the 4th one I think is senior software engineering, the non-technical parts. I think like those next 2 for me, I think it's always been important to me that the person learning from me needs to know that I'm doing the thing that I'm teaching you, right? Yeah. Because if I'm not doing it, like for example, Carbon just come out and then there's Carbon tutorials, right? And it's like how you can teach the basics of Carbon, but you can't teach it to scale. You can't teach it in a work environment. You can't teach it in the different cases there might have been, right? Because you don't have the exposure yet. It's so new, right? Yeah. Unless you're from Google, then maybe. Yeah. But I think like for me, it's always been important that I teach only, and this is kind of my absolute axiom for my teaching. I do not teach you something I do not believe in. Because I get student requests all the time about this library and this tool and this thing. And if I don't agree with it, I'm not going to teach it. Because I'm like, I would rather not teach something that don't believe in. Yeah. Rather than teach you something just because you want to learn it from me. And I'm so grateful to all my students that are asking me for it.
Even though it might generate you more income, why? Is it because you think you generally
I don't think that
you'll create better You'll bring more value in the content you create.
I think with anything, right? Like you're constantly mired with self-doubt, right? We are mired with self-doubt. We have imposter syndrome. It comes from this career is known for imposter syndrome, right?
Yep.
And I think it's especially important in order to combat that is imposter syndrome is kind of like you get backed into a corner where you're like, oh my God, maybe I don't know this, right? Or I'm unsure. And that lack of certainty is what gives you this insecurity. So for me, at the very least, if I like have a strong belief in this thing that I'm teaching, like one example is that I'm a fervent functional programming guy. Like for me, the paradigm that I believe in is functional programming. So if that is my baseline, as long as I'm teaching that, even if somebody disagrees and they're like, well, what about class-based? What about like another pattern, right? That's fine. Those are all viable solutions. I'm just not going to teach it. But if you were to put me in a corner and ask me about functional programming, I can die on that hill. You know what I mean? Like that for me is more important. I think like at the end of the day, the only way that we can not get lost in the sauce is you have to figure out what you're willing to stand for, right? You know that saying, like you got to stand for something or you fall for everything.
Yep.
I'm a strong believer of that, especially in my coursework, right? Because a lot of times students will ask me, this new version of React just came out, right? Can you teach it to me? And I'm like, listen, I haven't seen it at scale. I'm not comfortable teaching it to you because that's my thing. My thing is I'm going to teach you these patterns that are used at scale.
Yeah.
There are other instructors out there that will teach you everything with great depth and with great brilliance, right? As well, maybe even better than me, right? But for me to teach this thing, I need to be 100% certain that I've tested it, I've tried it, I've proven it. And if I haven't done that, I'm just not going to teach it. I'm just not
so
comfortable
huge.
with
I
that.
mean, when people come to me and they ask me about why not Code Academy or why not Free Code Academy, the thing is, I've been recommending ZTM behind the scenes before I even knew you had an affiliate program. I was working with Treehouse for a long time, not working for them, but I was their affiliate. They suck, but and so behind the scenes, because and then behind the scenes, whenever I meet people one by one, I'm like, Treehouse is cool, but I really recommend ZTM. I was recommending you guys for a long time before that.
Oh, amazing.
And the reason is because you guys don't teach what everyone teaches. And the fact that you said that, what you just said proves what I generally believe, which is that you teach what you teach, but you really go above and beyond that. But even on top of that, you teach things that people can generally use and help them actually get the job, which is so important. Everyone does a to-do list. Everyone does tic-tac-toe tutorials, you name it, shopping cart list, calculator, whatever. But I generally believe, at least from what I've seen with the courses I've taken, that you guys actually do want to help your students. And of course, you want to collect money. Who doesn't? But you do that by generally giving them the best value. And I saw that after speaking with Andre. Andre told me, Chris, I want to tell you something. I've taken every tutorial out there that you can think of, because I want to learn from their mistakes and see how they succeed and how I can do it even better, right? And so just hearing that from you as well was really encouraging to hear.
Yeah, Andre's a beast. I mean, Andre's kind of really the one that always champions the student first, right? He's really that person who always says, this is not as important. As long as the student experience is the best, that's what it is. And, we have...
Disneyland experience.
I can't speak for everyone else. I can only speak for me. I can only speak for me, right? I definitely have students who dislike... Sometimes they don't like my voice. Sometimes they don't like my inflection. They don't like the way I teach the topic. They want me to teach more, right? Like there are definitely students that want that, right? But I think a lot of it too is you have to take that feedback, but figure out how to be true to yourself as well. And I guess like regarding to your original question of how I manage the like juggling both full-time and the other, I think for me, right? Like I work in bursts, right? Like I'm not good at that like long, super sustained, like consistent putting in that consistency every single day type.
Yeah.
I know that I need to feel like that motivation, the inspiration. And the only way I feel that way is if I'm like, oh, I've reached the point where this is important for me to talk about or to teach it, right?
Yep.
And then of course, like crafting a course or creating something around it, I have to know that I'm like, okay, if I were to do where I was before, again, right, I'm going to make the thing that I wish I had. I wish I had at that time that would have gotten me here faster, which is what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
About wanting to help
Mentorship,
others.
someone to guide
It's
you,
the same thing. You're like, it took you a long time for you to get here. Let me help you get that faster.
Yeah.
I'm the same perspective about it, right? I was like, I wish I had this when I did this. Now, the other thing too is that like we're locked into our certain business models, right? In terms of our pricing for either ZTM or for Udemy. So of course you have to make something that fits to some degree into that molding, right? Like I can't do this everyday thing because like I don't like ZTM charges a subscription base, but I'm like, you know, we don't get paid in that style, right?
Yeah.
And Udemy, you buy my course once, it's you get it forever, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like these other academies or like teachers who you consistently pay like a high price point, right? My Udemy course is like $15. You know what I mean? By the time after like Udemy takes a portion and every
Udemy
like,
takes a
whatever all the
lot.
fees you pay.
Udemy takes
Yeah,
a
in the
lot
end
of
you get
money.
like $2 per course sale. Yeah, so like to me I'm just like it's volume is the game, but more importantly I'm like, well, at the end of the day, what is the most value I can give somebody, right? Who is most likely going to be shopping in this field, right? Like there's a degree, right? Like we have to know our competitors and everything too, right? Like I think for me, like in my opinion, if you're gonna go into like a senior engineering and you want to really zero in on like JavaScript or whatever, I actually think like Front End Masters has like very good content in that realm for like very tight, narrow industry experts teaching you very specific things. Like if you were like, how do I know the most scalable patterns in TypeScript, right?
Because you guys don't even have courses on that right now.
No, because and that's the thing. I think for us, we're also trying to make sure that it's like if we're gonna do it, we have to know what we're talking about, right? Because if we were just gonna learn it and then just teach it, what's the difference between? You know, I kind of feel like a charlattan, right? I feel like you know, that's why to me it's so important I work because I need my students to know, hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing this thing. I've gone out there, I've proven myself. It might take longer for me to finally put out this course for you, but at the very least, I'm gonna give you the assurance that I've tried it out, I've tested it. This company's crossed over this value threshold with my patterns. So at the very least, there might be other patterns out there, but I can tell you mine works. And that's always been like my guarantee is that I guarantee you it's worked before, right? It might not work in every circumstance, and I'll tell you the pitfalls of how that might happen, but I can guarantee you it's worked once.
That's amazing. I'm the same way in regards to content now. I used to upload content maybe 3 times a week, 2 times a week. Now it's 1. If I go full time YouTube, it'll be twice. But even when it comes to my content, I don't want to put out content just to put out content. I want to put out content I think that would generally help people. There's a purpose behind it, if not a good story behind it, that they can learn something. That is my goal in every video, but now do it to a whole nother level. Just talking about the courses you make and, you know, you pretty much help students, right, get in tech. What is the biggest mistake you see them make?
It's a complicated question. There's a lot of pitfalls. One major one is you have to get really good at trying to figure out as much as you can, right? Like, and I don't mean just like the engineering work. Like, of course, you have to get really good at that. Like, you have to learn how to Google the questions and get to as far as you can without asking immediately, like, what does this mean, right? You know what I mean? Like, people need to see that you've put in the work, because if you don't, you're not going to make it in this industry. This industry is pretty much all of us trying to figure it out ourselves, right?
It's a brutal industry
That's
too.
the first
If you
thing.
don't bring that value.
It's a brutal industry.
Yep, it is.
I say it's like 10% people actually get a job, like people that are trying to break it through, right? Because of this reason. I think it's more this than anything. It's like, can I trust that I assign you this thing, you'll figure it out, and you'll and you know, like you'll come to me in a way where I'm like, oh, this is a justified question versus like, I feel like you just didn't put the work in. Now, maybe you didn't because like it was crippling anxiety, whatever, right? But there are things that you have to kind of just figure out ways for yourself to overcome. You have to be more holistic as a person to get there, right?
Yep.
But the only way to get that kind of opportunity is you have to try, right? You have to apply. You have to gun for it. You can't be crippled by your imposter syndrome.
Yep.
You have to find ways to show that you have value rather than, if it's not just engineering, maybe there's other things you're good at, right? Maybe you're good at marketing, maybe you're good at business or something. You got to show that you can help assist the business, because they're business at the end of the day. And they're trying to hire you so that you can solve a business problem through engineering, not so that you can just be an engineer, which bleeds into my second half, which is like a common pitfall I see people that are becoming seniors, right? Is you get too attached in terms of your own identity and confidence with the quality of your code. It matters 100%. You need to know what are good patterns or whatever. But there's a reason why there's a rampant, I guess, chatter, and there's a stereotype of engineers that are too engineering, right? They're too deep in the weeds of the engineering. They can't communicate with business. They can't communicate with non-technical stakeholders. You're over engineering solutions. You're spending too much time, you know, doing this thing, doing that thing, right? Like, It's about balance. Like, of course, coming from a non-technical background, you have a lot of insecurity about your technical knowledge. And 100%, there is a very, very deeply valuable, 100% required necessity to write good code, right? Scalable code. But at the same time, you have to know what corners to cut. Why are you doing this? How are you doing this, right? And like, primarily, how is this going to help the business? Should we even be building this, right? Is there a tool that we should use instead of building this from scratch? Is there a way that I can, make this less scalable now, right, but accommodate some of the bigger concerns, right, in order for me to at least deliver something rather than deliver perfection, which will never happen anyways, right? There's so much of this that people get bogged down by, that they get stuck in this trough where you never make it to senior for a long time. People are intermediates for a very long time because of that.
Point. Yeah.
And I think that is probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome, right? And it's hard. I understand, right? Imposter syndrome is crazy, but like at the same time, the way through that is not going to be to become the greatest engineer you can, like in terms of just technical. You could, and there are definitely places where you can do that, right? But 95% of the companies you work at are probably not going to be like that. If you're in the FANGs, even then, like, they do have an extremely high requirement for your technical ability, but they expect you to be good at everything else too. They're not just going to be like,
literally,
oh, this guy's
it's
brilliant.
insane.
They're not just going to expect you to be brilliant and like get code in a corner. No. You're still going to have to be very good at delivering business value through engineering. And I think that is a very, very important thing.
And those are the people who earn the largest paychecks, to be honest. Again,
exactly.
Bringing solutions to problems. Right. So, so for me, it's really funny because that's what I've learned. For me, my biggest problem was not over communicating my solutions, just letting someone, make the decision, even though I might know something better, held that back. Even when I first joined Airbyte, I know what makes good content on YouTube, but not really defending my views, believing what I know works or not. And so now I'm doing that. And like, for example, you see those podcasts I'm doing on my work, and they said, Chris, we need more technical podcasts. And I'm like, no. People want to know the people behind the company. Just let me interview these people who work here. That's going to do really well. No, Chris. And so I just did it without the permission. I just started interviewing people. Hey, we're going to start something. And now, like, for example, the last interview got 1,000 views, which is pretty good for a channel that only has 1,400 views, like subscribers. So like taking initiative and showing the way they can solve problems. And that just raise, when it comes to like NBA draft, players have stock value, raise your stock value in that company and what you contribute and stuff. But same thing with engineering, etc. I agree 100%. This was a fun conversation. I had a lot of fun. Was there anything else you wanted to say anything else you want to say out here on the podcast before we end it?
Probably just that, like, especially for people trying to come into this industry.
Yeah.
Just know that you have value of some kind. You just have to figure out how to find the right expression for it within this industry, right? There's numerous paths that you can take in order to find a very successful career in this industry. And don't be afraid to realize that you don't like engineering either. But it's not like that. There's numerous ways to succeed and do very well in this industry for not just yourself, but the businesses that are hiring you too. And you just have to figure that out. And a lot of times it might be painful, but it's worth it in the end.
That is such a good point because, I love tech. I like writing code. But if I had to choose between writing code, all day, or DevRel, where I create content that can help people better use products or whatever, and I can still code there, I choose DevRel any day. I'm a software engineer, but I don't consider myself to be the best software engineer, and it's probably because I focus more on YouTube than coding. To be honest, if I didn't have YouTube, I'd be way better, but no regrets. So I learned what I really love, which is making content, and we'll see how far that can take me. If not, I can go back in software engineering and code 9 to 5. But yeah, that's such good advice. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh. Yihua. Wait, hold on, right? I said that right? Yihua?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, cool.
So like a cowboy's yeehaw, but you flip it. Yihua.
Yihua, thank you so much for being on it.
This has been so good to me, not just in terms of our conversation, but I'm glad that we connected because I'm very curious to get to know you more.
Yeah, no, same here. Awesome, dude. Well, Yehua, thank you so much for being on this podcast. For everyone who's watching right now, I'll see y'all next time.